In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. This is a common rhyme we use to remember when America was discovered and by whom it was discovered. So, a rhyme is when you have one word and the end of the word sounds like another word. So, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. These two words, blue and two, rhyme, just like cat and hat. All right. So this guy from Europe came across the sea in this year 1492. Or we can say at the end of the 15th century. So now we're in the 21st century, 2014. So he came over in 3 ships and it took many months. He went across the Atlantic Ocean and he was trying to find India. Why? He thought there would be a lot of gold in India. So when finally they reached the land, they found people living there. These people we would call native people. That means people who were living there before. But he called them Indian people because he thought he was in India. And he never found out that it was not India. He died thinking that he had been to India. He didn't know he had found a totally new place. Europe didn't know about this place before he went there. So, he got there and claimed, that means you say, this is mine, the land for his country. But there were already people living there. So, this started some difficult problems between European people and native people, which they called Indians. Many of the European people gave the native people diseases and killed them because they wanted to take this land, because they wanted to bring things back to Europe. So, after he came, Christopher Columbus, this guy, many more people started to come because they realized they could make a lot of money. They came and claimed land for themselves. Spanish people, Dutch people, English people, many people from Europe came on ships and they started to trade. What workers did they use? They used the native people, the people called Indians, but they were not Indians. So they used them as slaves, so they were not treated very well, and they killed many of them. And many of them also got bad diseases. And at this time, they were trading or selling things that European people really wanted, but that you could only get in this part of the world, America, Mexico, and parts of South America. Silver. Tobacco, that's what you use to smoke cigarettes. Tobacco. Coffee. Coffee was becoming very popular. And also, most importantly, maybe, sugar. Sugar you could grow in this part of the world, and it became very, very popular in Europe. So many people came to get rich. But after this, people started to come to America, not to get rich, but just to have a new life. They thought, I don't like being in Europe for many reasons. Maybe I'm poor, or everyone is dying from some disease, or some bad situation. So people began to come over from Europe to America and live. These people were not called explorers. Maybe the first people were called explorers, or sometimes conquerors. A conqueror is someone who takes something and kills. These people who came to live were called settlers. And maybe the most famous settlers came around the year 1620. So that would be the 17th century. And this group was called the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims. So they came from England, and they came to the north part of America. And they just wanted to live there. They wanted to make a new life. And you may know the word pilgrim because this is where Thanksgiving comes from. Thanksgiving is a very famous holiday in America. So they arrived around 1620, and it was very difficult for them. They didn't know how to farm, how to grow food. Many people died because of some disease. They got sick. They didn't build very good houses, so they were very cold in the winter. And then they got some help from the Native Americans there. That means the native people. The Native Americans. And the Native Americans taught them how to grow food. They taught them maybe how to build better houses. They taught them how to hunt. They helped them to live or survive. And so the next year, when they had learned many things, and when they had grown a lot more food, they had extra food, they had a very big celebration or a big holiday called Thanksgiving. Well, that's what we call it now. It wasn't called Thanksgiving then. But that's where Thanksgiving comes from. These pilgrims who came to start a new life, they arrived, they had a tough time, and then the Native Americans helped them. The next year, when they had lots of food, they celebrated. Okay, so that's Thanksgiving. Now, more and more people began to come, and at last, England had the most land in America. There were 13 states that were part of England, kind of. They belonged to England. England had them. And they were called the 13 colonies, the 13 American colonies. But the king of England was the boss of the 13 colonies. Maybe someone in America has to follow the king in England. But they don't live in England. So people started to feel uncomfortable about this. People in America who were living their lives, who had built cities like Boston. Boston was one of the biggest cities at that time. Philadelphia was a very popular city at that time, in the 1700s or the 18th century. People living in the 13 colonies of America started to be unhappy about a few important things. For example, if England sent some tea from England to America, which was common, they had to pay some tax. Tax means you have to pay a little bit more for something you buy. And the tax was very high. And there were taxes on other things too. But they didn't get any benefit from England for paying the tax. So if you live in a country and you pay tax to your government, you get some benefit for that. For example, if you live in China and you pay tax when you get your salary, maybe the government will take the money and build a road or build a bridge or something. You get something from that. But people in America were paying tax, and they were living in America, so they got no benefit. So they started getting more and more angry. So after some small disagreements and some small fights, the relationship between the 13 colonies and America became not very good. They were pretty angry at each other, especially America. And so, finally, the American people, some of the American people, a group of guys, we call them the Founding Fathers, decided, we are tired of this. We don't want to be part of England anymore. So they made something called the Declaration of Independence. This is a very, very famous letter that was written by Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is the third president of America. He wrote this letter and they sent it to England. The letter said, hey, England, we are not part of you anymore. So, how do you think England felt about this? So far, they get lots of money from America because American people, or people living in the 13 colonies, send lots of stuff, trade a lot. And then that place says, we are not part of England anymore. England was mad, and England did not agree. So they sent soldiers to fight America, to stop them from leaving. And they had a big war. And the war was called the Revolutionary War. Revolutionary War. Revolution means you fight to get free from something, usually. Or there is a huge change in something. That is revolutionary. You can use this as an adjective. That's so revolutionary. It's something totally new. A revolution is a totally new way of doing something. So if something is revolutionary, it begins a new thing. The Revolutionary War began a new country. So after many years of fighting, the colonies, the 13 colonies, beat the British, or the people in England. And the king in England was very angry about this, right? But anyway, America was, after this, free. So, these guys, these founding fathers, these old guys, got together and decided, all right, we're free now. We need to make a government. We need to make a government. So, they decided to make a government that allowed people to be very free, to do a lot of the things they wanted to do. You can say anything you want. You can write about whatever you want. A lot of important things that make each person, who is an American person, very free. And that is the basic point of the American government. And these founding fathers were the guys who made it. So, that's the beginning story of America. And when they signed the Declaration of Independence, we call that Independence Day. And it is on July 4th. They wrote that letter on July 4th, 1776. We consider that to be actually the first day of America. When you sign that letter to say, I'm not British anymore. I am an American person. So we consider that to be the first day. So, when we celebrate July 4th, we use fireworks, a lot of fireworks, very loud. And we eat hot dogs, we have barbecue, we relax, we enjoy freedom. That's the history of the beginning of America. But after this, there were more problems, and especially problems with the Native Americans. Remember, I said there were these Native American people that many people called Indians because the first guy thought that they were from India. And they kept getting pushed farther and farther away from where they were. As more people began to come to America, they had to go farther and farther and farther and farther to the west. And many, many more were killed. So the relationship between the Indians, or the Native American people, and the settlers who began to come to America more and more got worse and worse. And even now, it is still not very good. Even now, people call them Indians sometimes. So there are still some basic problems from the beginning of America. And after people started to come to America, they also used slaves, people from Africa, to work. And this caused also some problems in American history. And that's what caused, or part of what caused, the Civil War. So, if you have any questions, you can ask me on WeChat, and I will see you next time.